Hello everyone, this is CJNovo992 and today we're back for another brand new video. And today's video will be a very interesting one as we're here to talk about a player leaving the football club. Now I know there's been a lot of departures, there's going to be even more departures, not everybody's going to get their own individual video, but I feel like there is a certain select that deserves their individual video to look back at their time here because of the blood, sweat and tears they put in to this football club. They deserve a wee bit of conversation, and there is someone just like a Tavernier and everything like that deserves that type of respect, but also just like Tavernier also brings in a level of spice in the comments section below, because there is people that genuinely straight up hate this guy. There's others like myself that are very appreciative of what he'd done and how important he was. So I thought, instead of just saying, coming on here, reading it, he starts saying bye bye and everything like that, I thought I'd actually break down Connor Goldson season upon season, the impact he's had, the decline he's had, the partners he's played with. I'm going to go back to the years that he first came to this club. We're going to sort of compare it to now, see if we're any weaker than we were 7 years ago. It might sound daft to say, but the longer you watch today's video, the more your eyes might be opened in terms of our quality and lack of in certain areas. So aye, should be a very interesting one as we finally say goodbye to Connor Goldson, formerly known as CB number 1. And unfortunately for Connor, he finally has a song, and that's Goodbye My Connor. Goodbye my friends. But before we actually get to the real meat and tatties of this actual video, finding out whether or not Connor Goldson was underrated or overrated in terms of a player and the impact that he had on the actual squad, I'll pull it back just a little bit from my interest in the things I want to talk to you about, because I know everyone wants to talk about the actual transfer details. Now, again, it's not really my type of thing, you know what I mean? I'm not interested in being a journalist. I've never wanted to be anything like that. I just like having conversations right here on the old internet with you guys who tune in each and every single upload. But to give you the details in, there's obviously been a permanent transfer at undisclosed fee for Connor Goldson. Now, depending on where you search and whatever number you type in, you'll find a reporter saying it's 2, it's 3, it's 1, it's 4. There's some nice numbers out there, some not so nice numbers out there, but again, it's all just rumours and speculation. For me, that doesn't interest me at all. What does interest me is the fact that the wages has been freed up, as Connor Goldson was our second highest earner, I believe, at this football club, and it is absolutely massive to get those massive wages for Scottish football and redistribute them evenly in terms of bringing in some quality. And I think if you look at him and if you look at a couple of other players that's going to be leaving this football club very soon, that's given a lot more wiggle room to this football club, to Wee Cop and Big Clement, to actually bring in the players that they want. The massively strangling, bloated wages that we've had week in and week out, the highest wage bill in Scotland. It's been bleeding this club and restricting this club and restricting manager after manager, apart from Michael Beale, who gave out a lot of those wages. You're starting to see them freed up now, and it's a very interesting and exciting time, I would say, for this football club, as we're finally given some space for the manager to go ahead and do what he wants to do. So that's my biggest talking point. People can look at the undisclosed fee and speculate A, B, C, whatever money's came in for him is good. For me, it's a very smart move to free up those amount of wages, considering his contract ran till 2026, being 31 and clearly declining and regressing as a player. For me, that is a massive step in the right direction, and I say that as a massive Connor Goldson fan. So that's my thoughts on the actual details of the transfer. Now let's talk about the player, his story and his impact. And I know you might be tempted to click off the video as you're not interested to hear about the story of Goldson. You've went ahead and lived it, but I think your eyes will be opened a lot, especially when we talk about how strong teams were 6, 7 years ago compared to what they are now. And there's a conversation there that, were we better defensively 5, 6, 7 years ago than we are now? And I've got some interesting stats that might go ahead and back that up. But let's pull it back to the beginning then. Connor Goldson joined this football club in the 18-19 season after having his career in life-threatening with a serious heart condition. After making 3 Premier League appearances for Brighton, it looked like he was going out to live his dream of playing at the top flight of English football. It was there in front of him, but life can be cruel and it can offer some real twists and turns at any point. And obviously his Premier League career and his football career at that point was ripped away from him, as there was a lot of question marks on whether or not Connor Goldson would ever be able to play again because of the needed surgery on the ticker. And full respect to Connor Goldson for not only battling through the heart surgery, getting back, but continue to having one purpose, to get back playing football and back living out his dream as a professional football player. And that's something you can look at, whether you rate him as a player or you haven't forgiven him for this moment on the park, or think he'd have done this with this silly on goal, just at a human level, to battle through all that, ignore whatever was said, to doubt him, get back to playing and going on to do what he done. That's something you can look back at and say, aye, that deserves respect. But that respect goes both ways, as you have to respect the cojones of Steven Gerrard to willing to sign off on signing Connor Goldson after the question marks, after the doubts, and the apparent transfer fee that was rumoured to say, or reported to say, 2.5, 3 million, even 3.5, whatever it actually was. It was a ballsy call to Gerrard, but almost a masterstroke, as he changed the entire defence like that. And I think it's hard now, because what we've went through over the last couple of years, and maybe the decline of Connor Goldson, which again will become clearer the longer you watch today's video, the way he came in and changed our entire defence like that overnight was genuinely terrifying. And I think it says a lot about the player, the personality and the leadership when he was truly at it, that he walked into a dressing room and Steven Gerrard, of all people, on day one that he came to this football club, changed the vice-captaincy role, changed it round and went, aye, that's my vice-captain. That's what actually happens. So to be able to impress someone like a Gerrard, whose standards are right up to there, shows you the professionalism in Connor Goldson and what impact they had, because it's hard to imagine what it was like before Connor Goldson, because he's been here for so long, but there was genuine guff there for far, far too long. And Goldson coming to this football club was genuinely a breath of fresh air, and he provided a rock that eventually 55 was built upon. The big man played a total of 54 games that season, chipping in with 4 goals, 10 yellow cards, have been a major part in collecting 24 clean sheets. And if you remember back then, we weren't that used to clean sheets when Rob Kiernan, Senderos, Danny Wilson and that was cutting about in that back line. So aye, that was a massive difference to our overall squad. But who did he play with that season? And that for me is going to be one of the most important talking points and interesting discussions that I want to see down in the comment section below, because I want you, each season I'm going to mention who he partnered that season, and I want you to tell me in the comment section below if that defensive pairing was better than what we currently have as we're edging closer to the restart of the season of Ben Davies and John Souttar. That's where we are now, 7 years later, 7 years of progression. Now that Connor Goldson has left the football club, are we better now than we were 7 years ago when big man Connor Goldson partnered Katic, Boom and Joe Worrell? Now I know you thought of Rugby Park, but for me, I think that's really, really close. You had Goldson at that age, Katic was so big and powerful, you had Worrell, who did have some good moments. I think it's a real toss-up, and I'd actually lean towards the 18-19 centre-back pairing over what we've currently got, because at least someday could win a header. And something else I'm going to do each season is mention his best performance. In my opinion, it'd be cool to see some people's other memories as well. For me, right off the bat, his best performance was that 1-0 win over Celtic Ibrox, where he had to take some injections. He had to inject the old ankle. You had an interview fired out how much pain he was in. He was probably suggested not to go ahead and play, but he wanted to make sure he was fit as possible to be able to play in that game, to wear the badge on his chest. And he went out and had a fantastic performance and kept a clean sheet on one ankle in an Old Firm. So I credit to the big man. It showed his grit that we would soon come to know and expect over the next couple seasons. The following season, as we get to the 19-20 season, he played 52 games, so 2 games less than his comeback overall season, but it's still 52 games out of 54 available, meaning he has played 106 games out of the 108 games available overall for Steven Gerrard's Rangers side. And again, you didn't need me to tell you that type of reliability wasn't something we've came used to, or still not used to, in terms of being able to play week in and week out. The gamble from Gerrard in terms of signing someone that had a known heart issue was certainly proven to have been working, as the big man again was so important that season. In the 52 games that he played, he scored 4 goals once again, by the way, picking up 2 assists this time, 7 yellow cards, and being a part of 25 clean sheets. bit more of progression again, and that's how the team felt back then, you know what I mean? Under Gerrard, you could see it, there were still duffers, there were still players that weren't good enough, we still had things to fine tune, but we're moving in the right direction. Again, Connor Goldson's reliability was a major reason on that fact. Now, in terms of his best performance, before we get to the partners, right away, his best performance, I think, from that season has to be away to Braga when we won 1-0. I know it's known for Kent's goal. Kent paid his own transfer fee, I know that storyline, but if you think of the other end of the park, how big and powerful Goldson actually was, and just during that overall run as well, that eventually was ended due to Bayer Leverkusen, obviously a bit more later because of the COVID situation, etc, etc. But for me, Braga 1-0 away, big, powerful. It was the quintessential Goldson's performance, and it isn't one that should get often overlooked, as he was just as important. It was Kent putting the ball in the back of it to create all that money versus Braga. Big man played his part as well. Now, his partners that season, interestingly enough, were George Edmondson, the big fridge, who is now going to be plying his trade, in the Premier League, and Philippe Helander. Troops. Am I right in saying the 18-19 and the 19-20 season of Rangers Football Club is better defensively than where we are now, despite spending more on what we've currently got? For me, that's 2 for 2. I think we were better 6 years ago. The next season, we all know what is coming. It is the 2021 season, the undefeated league season, the season we stopped 10 in a row, the season we won the Premier League, the building that had been done the previous 2 years under Gerrard, especially with Goldson being amongst it, came to fruition. And for me, I think there's a lot of storylines that get often overlooked, and I think one of the most important ones was Shane Duffy's arrival to Scotland, and not in the meme type of way or anything like, because he actually started his career off for Celtic well, scoring goals. I know he became a bit of a meme, and that's funny, we all like to have a laugh at, but his signing for Scottish football, the best centre-back in Scotland, the best centre-back in Scotland, that's where it was praised, that's where it was fired absolutely everywhere. The big man was coming to take that #1 centre-back spot, and that was the storyline. But that seemed to spark a fire under Connor Goldson that I never really saw after that season, as Goldson stood up and for me by far had his best overall campaign. And obviously they have that fantastic head-to-head where Duffy's doing there with his hands in his heads, Connor Goldson blowing kisses, scoring 2 goals. They were marking each other, they were up against each other, it was all there to be seen. The battle for the best centre-back in the Premiership was right then and there, and Goldson quite clearly stood above the rest as he went and played a major part in the overall season and helped break a British record for goals conceded. Genuinely, he was outstanding. But you don't need to just take my word for it. Nah, we've got stats to back that up, as he played in every single game available, playing 56 out of 56 games. A tremendous achievement for the big man, who did have question marks and knocks and niggles and potential maybes, but he continued to push through, continued to play for the club, and that was what was echoed by manager Steven Gerrard and McAllister whenever a presser came out. Goldson was questionable. He continued to pull the boots on as the appetite to play for this club couldn't be quelled, as he continued to go out there and play phenomenally well during those 56 games in which he scored 8 goals. He picked up 4 yellow cards, in which he had 2 assists as well, by the way. But the biggest stat for me is the 34 clean sheets. An absolute joke, ladies and gentlemen, of an overall season. And individually, he was about as good as it gets. And for me, that's the pinnacle of Connor Goldson. If he had vanished into a pile of dust, if he had been sold at the end of that season when there was a couple of teams apparently interested, if we had pulled the trigger there, Goldson's memory, Goldson's legacy would be completely different. But he didn't, and we know what happens. And if you are wondering, by the way, that is now 162 games out of 164 games available since joining for Rangers. A ridiculous achievement and a ridiculous record that just goes to show you not everybody is injury prone at this football club. The big man, no matter the knock, played, and his stats suggested that and showed that, I should say. And his best overall performance, I know it's a bit cheap to actually do that, but it has to be the game versus Celtic, which he scored the 2 goals and bullied Shane Duffy. I know it's the one everyone always remembers, and it'd be nice to pull out son, but it was just the setup, almost like a title fight between the both of them, and the way he manhandled them, threw him about for a guy that was coming up here for 10 in a row and everything like that. It was just perfect, and Goldson destroyed him that season, and that was quite clearly his best performance. Now, his centre-back partnerships, those seasons were Helander and Balogun. That's free for free in me. I think we are better defensively then than we are again. Now, after winning his first bit of silverware in terms of Rangers, how would they respond the following year? Well, it started off very, very well, playing a major part in keeping a clean sheet versus Celtic, creating a gap at the top of the table, and then went Gerrard. Now we've heard the likes of Barisic come out with interviews and say how much that rocked the club and how much the club failed to respond to actually that. But in came Gio, who was obviously let down by the board. We all know that, we already spoke of that before, but we're not here for that. We're here for Goldson, and despite it obviously not going the way we wanted it in terms of throwing away the points at the top of the table, again, individually played pretty damn well, as they played 61 of the 64 games available overall in the season, and one of those games was an early cup game that he was just rotated regarding Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. That is impressive. And to sit here, look you in the eyes and say this man had went ahead and played 223 games out of 229 available, yet still hear people questioning if he ever wanted it or if he ever cared. Just look at what he put his body through, playing through knocks, getting injections. To put out those numbers these days, especially in Scottish football, especially with our European schedule, it is absolutely incredible. And that for me is why I've always found it difficult to accept people criticising if he cared or if he wanted or if it mattered about him playing. If it never mattered for him, he'd be like the rest, sitting on the sidelines. But the big man made sure he went out there and played on the park and earned every single wage the man ever received. And aye, it was absolutely ridiculous the numbers he put right out the actual gate. We'd never seen it before, and I doubt we'll ever see it again. Now, his numbers during those 61 games were 4 goals, again, by the way, 5 assists this time. He chipped in with 5 and 12 yellow cards. I nearly said 7 there, but 12 yellow cards, in which he played a total of 25 clean sheets out of the 61 games available as well, protecting the 0, if you remember that quote. But again, that season is remembered for the Europa League run more than anything else, and truly he played his part in it. Now, there is again a bit of an unfair thing that gets fired to Goldson, and for me this is why a lot of people just didn't take to Goldson. No matter what I say or what stats or anything we talk about, they cannot get over the fact that he didn't clear the ball versus Frankfurt in the actual final. And I know you just got a jolt. I felt it in my ticker as well, but I just think it's very, very unfair, as there were several players that made a mistake on the actual play. We all blame Goldson for not clearing the ball, but we never talk about Scott Wright not blocking his man, Tavernier being out a position, and Calvin Bassey allowing his man to run in front of him to tap it in after it went by Connor Goldson. There were so many mistakes a part of that, but it just seems to be shoehorned and tunnelled in to Connor Goldson, and for me it's very, very unfair, especially when you consider the fact that we only took the lead for a centre-back falling over, allowing Joe Aribo to run through. Mistakes happened in the game. It was a final. It's a part of football, and to almost blame him for losing a Europa League final just never sit right with me. He wasn't the fault. Even the Scotty Wright or Tav being out of position, Bassey doing this, the guys that missed the penalties, it's no Aaron Ramsey's fault either. It's no one's fault but the entire team who went out there and didn't perform to the level we had played. The fearlessness in which we had versus the likes of Dortmund was gone in that final. We know it. We have to, I think time will eventually come where we can all have a genuine conversation and stop looking for excuses, blaming Kent for the miss, blaming all this. We just never turned up in the final. And was that the tactics? Was that the players getting too nervous? It wasn't just on Goldson, but that's my thoughts on that. He never lost us Europa League final. We lost the final by no performing the way we had the rest of the tournament. But I know everyone, when they think of Goldson that year, will think of that moment, but for me, I'll think about how we go to the dance, and his best performance for me was against Leipzig, especially at Ibrox. I actually think he was really good away from home, but we did lose that game due to that late goal. I was actually at that game, if you remember the video we put out on the chat. Absolute sickener. I can't get it, but he was absolutely brilliant on that day, and he was very good at Ibrox as well, helping to lock up Nkunku, who then went away for a lot of money to actually Chelsea. For me, he was one of the main reasons we made that final. I think Giovanni went out to make sure that was actually said, or was it the assistant? I can't exactly remember, but it was quite clear he had his best game of the season for me in that second game in the semi-final to propel us to the final. Won every ball, especially those last little crosses that came in. It was him every single time. Brilliant. And that's what I feel like's often overlooked with him. People forget that moment because we were all devastated by the final. But you know what time it is now, ladies and gentlemen? It's time to look at his partners for that season. Now again, this is the part of the season where Hollander started to get injured and he was just gone from that. So Golson's partners that season was Leon Balogun and Calvin Bassey, with Big CB number 1. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting looking you in the eyes and saying we were better back then defensively than again we are right now. And there's a £60 million carrot dangled in front of us. What a regression in the centre-back position. But where I've sounded like maybe the biggest defender of Connor Goldson, and sometimes I feel like I feel like I'm the only one that appreciates his hard work. For me, that season, that game, with the lift in the old Scottish Cup at the end of the season, was the last I saw of the Goldson I knew he could be. The unshakable, reliable, consistent Connor Goldson. It was never quite the same after that season, you know what I mean? Was it a European hangover? Had he just played too many games in such a short period of time? Only he will actually know, but it was never quite the same for me, and this is when the regression really started to hit, and it hit in a big way as he picked up a massive hamstring injury. He played just 38 games in total that season, which just isn't Connor Goldson numbers, with 3 goals, 3 assists, 8 yellow cards, and being a part of 18 clean sheets. For me, his best performance right away has to be the 1-0 win away to PSV. Cholak gets a lot of it, Tillman gets a lot of respect, everyone gets a bit of respect apart from the big man who was absolutely outstanding again that day. For me, that's the last time that I went and said, aye, there he is. But again, it was fleeting, it was glimpses, it was moments. We just couldn't find that consistency, and maybe, just maybe, we've found the reason, or one of the reasons why. Because ask me, ladies and gentlemen, ask me in the comment section below who were his centre-back partnerships that season in which he couldn't find his consistency, which he had every single year prior. Go ahead, ask. You already know the answer. It's Ben Davies and John Souttar. We've caught up to where we actually were last season, ladies and gentlemen, or where we are as a football club. Weird that, ladies and gentlemen, he got worse the more he played with what we currently have right now. But to be fair, he also did play a couple games with James Sands at centre-back as well, and young Leon King. Obviously, the biggest loss was getting hammered versus Liverpool, but if you actually look at that game, he fit, but both Jacko and Goldson weren't on the park for the absolute pounding that we took versus Liverpool. When they were on, we were in the game. It was 1 each. We were right in it, but we lost Jacko in the middle, who was the shield back then, and then we lost Goldson, and it absolutely imploded and showed his importance to this team as we got one of the most embarrassing losses we've ever had in our career. And Goldson wasn't on the park that day, and a lot of people actually forget it when they're firing out their tweets saying he oversaw this and he oversaw this embarrassment. He wasn't on it. Which brings us to last season, in many ways, the last being so important. It's going to be obviously the last season for Connor Goldson in terms of playing competitive games for his football club. I know he's been a part of some friendlies. I know he got to wear the captain's armband one last time this pre-season, but the last season was his last competitive games for Rangers, and again, for me, the regression was in full swing. Anything that he showed prior to the year before, the PSV game, the couple wee moments here or there, was just sort of gone. Now, he did play 48 games last season, so a bit of a jump up, playing 10 more games, but he got 0 goals for the first time in his Rangers career, which was a massive frustration for all of us, as every header just seemed to go out the bar, and he just never had the eye of the tiger anymore, if you get that actual reference. He did, however, pick up 3 yellow cards, in which he had 3 assists with 11 yellow cards, and was a part of 22 clean sheets. And again, I think his best partner that season, last season, was the run with Balogun, but then he got injured. It was the run with Davies, but it just couldn't find consistency. We kept trying to shoehorn in Souttar and Goldson. It never worked. I still firmly believe in my heart Souttar was bought to try and replace Goldson, which is even more embarrassing if you actually think about that. But then when Goldson stayed, it shook everything up, and we've tried to shoehorn it ever since, and it's never ever worked, because not only did you have 2 players that want to do the exact same thing, that's never ever gonna work, you also have Goldson, who's regressing, sorry, after playing so many games, after so many years, and that's it, ladies and gentlemen. He didn't mean to tell you who the centre-back partnerships, and I do think it's funny if you look at his 7-year tenure at this football club, the worst that Goldson played was with his current centre-halves that nobody rates these days, and it's new. You'd think it'd be 7-8 years ago, and we've built on, and we've got to the likes of Bassies and the Hollanders and the Katichis and the Ballagans and the Edmondsons. You'd think that'd be where we are now. But every single one of them I've listed, I'd take right now over what we currently have. And that's a scary, scary statement. And I guess what's even scarier, ladies and gentlemen, I've mentioned regression. I've mentioned how poor Goldson's actually been the last 2 years. But still, and I'm looking you dead in the face when I say this, I think a regressed Connor Goldson at 31, having played too many games, still offers more stability in the back line than what we've got, and that's scary to me. All I can hope, ladies and gentlemen, is we take that wage budget and whatever transfer fee we got for Goldson, we reinvest it and go and get another centre-half, because if there is one takeaway that I've took from going ahead and looking at this video and looking at the stats and breaking down all the videos and reading every single manager report that's said about Goldson, is it's made it very, very, very clear this football club, especially its centre-half, hasn't been standing still. It's been gone backwards, as we've nearly reverted to what we were defensively before Goldson came in 7 years ago. And that isn't a scary prospect. That is beyond terror, and it is clear indication that reinforcements are needed. I'm not needing projects or maybes or one days. We need improvements now, because the centre-half's position hasn't been this bad in 8 years. And we can't go through what we went through last time it was this rough. And aye, that's it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to wrap up his overall Rangers career in total in terms of professional games, not pre-seasons or anything. He played a total of 309 games, scoring 23 times, which I did double check, by the way, whilst grabbing 15 assists and having a whopping 138 clean sheets in the 309 games. Taking a step back, that there is a very, very impressive CV in my personal opinion, and you can have your favourites and that gone past and obviously gone back in the day, but I feel like Connor Goldson will in time be a part of that conversation as one of our better centre-halves we've had in the last 2 decades at least, ladies and gentlemen. When he was on it, when he was at his best, and when he had a partner next to him that he trusted and wasn't up and down shaking it up about in terms of consistency, Goldson was the guy at Rangers. And aye, it's a sad day that he's gone, but I completely agree with the decision. I think we all know I'm a fan of the laddie, but everything has its time, you know what I mean? And I feel like Goldson's time has came the football club. You could argue it was a year ago, maybe 2, but his time has now went. He's left the club, and now it's on the club to go out and get his replacement, because it's no Suter, it's no Ben Davies, it's no Leon Balogun. We just can't rely on him. Leon King still got a lot to prove, and the Salah's not even getting games in pre-season. It shows you how far away he is. We need Goldson's successor. Where is he? Maybe we'll have him by the time the summer window slamming shut. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a very long video. I look forward to editing this to see what you guys are saying down in the comment section below. But now that CB number 1, the former vice captain of this football club, has left, how do you feel? And honestly, if you are still watching, if you made it right to the end, let me know if you think he's underrated or overrated, because he is one of the most polarising players around over the last couple years. So it'll be interesting to see how you sit. For me, underrated and underappreciated, but he's gone now. Let's go and get our replacement. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I've been Sage Over 92. Thank you so much for watching. All the best, and bye bye.